Okay, class, we're still on chapter 1. I apologize, chapter 1 is a long chapter. We're going to have a lot of videos. You should not expect this to be true of all the chapters. We're now beginning part 7, and we're talking about schools of legal thought. And I'm going to tell you up front, you will not be tested on this. I do not consider it to be important, so I'm going to fly through it in this video, and then we'll go on to the next video. But basically, this is an attempt by theoretical scholars to try and understand the thinking behind the law, what makes the law. And so they've put it into various schools of thought. And these are the various schools of thought, and we'll go through those. So the natural law basically says that we have certain natural rights, and that explains the law. So for example, one of those theoretical arguments that's going around today is that even though the Constitution doesn't provide for it, human beings have a right to be left alone. Okay? And so that's the sort of natural right that is argued. And that's sort of a universal law, things we expect to be true. Okay, the positive school of thought is centered around the assumption that there is no law higher than the laws created by government. In other words, government makes the laws, and that's basically it. Historical says that law is an aggregate of social traditions and customs. In other words, what we become used to becomes the law. It stresses the evolutionary nature of the law and looks to doctrines that have withstood the passage of time for guidance in shaping the present law. This is sort of a conservative theory that basically says what's been good in the past is good for us now. Okay, legal realism advocates a less abstract and more realistic and pragmatic approach to the law and takes into account customary practices and circumstances surrounding a particular transaction. So this would be one that might be applied in a contract situation, for example, between merchants who deal with one another on a regular basis, and it would look at the surrounding transactions and say what has been the common course of activity between these people, and that should be the standard that's applied. The analytical approach is based on logic and basically says that judges should look at what's logical to do in a given circumstance in creating common law. The sociological school of thought views the law as a tool for promoting justice. Okay, the law is a means of achieving and advancing certain sociological goals. So perhaps an example of this would be the recent Supreme Court case that declared that laws in states that only allowed heterosexuals to marry was a violation of the 14th Amendment. That would be promoting what would be seen as justice under the Equal Protection Clause and advancing a certain sociological goal. The command school of thought is that the law is a set of rules developed, communicated, and enforced by the ruling party. So whoever's in control, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Conservatives, the Liberals, they're the ones that make the law, and that's the way it is. The critical legal studies school of thought says that legal rules are unnecessary and that legal disputes should be solved by applying arbitrary rules based upon fairness. So this is sort of a doctrine of equity kind of thing, that the courts should do whatever's fair in a given situation. Okay. Another school of thought is the School of Law and Economics, and this probably is one that emanates from the Chicago Economics School led by Professor Friedman, that basically says that everything should be whatever promotes market efficiency, and that should be the central concern of all government policy as well as legal decision making, because that's what's best for a capitalistic society. Okay, so we're going to stop there, and as I said, that's the least important probably video that you'll see in this whole course. However, since some of you may have cut out before we finish this thinking that it wasn't important, I'm going to give the magic word right now for Chapter 1, the magic word is federalism.